Welcome to Moon Mother Magic. I am your host, Ariel Myers. I just spoke with Sarah Durham Wilson, formerly Do It Girl, currently the Mother Spirit, and Sarah of Magdalene. Sarah is the mother of the archetypal journey from maiden to motherhood, which is one of the true rites of passage that I talk about often, especially in our fertility journey, but that is so important for any woman to grow into a mature version of herself, a mature version of the feminine, as opposed to the patriarchalized and idealized version of the immature feminine. I got chills when I was talking to her. I got teary-eyed a million times. I felt her energy in my body. And I feel so inspired by and passionate about her work. And I feel like if there's any episode you listen to, let it be this one, because it's truly powerful and magical. And I think it'll rock your world. So big thanks to Sarah Durham Wilson for joining. And I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed this conversation. Oh, hi. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to talk about all these things, but I often find like for me and for you to like kind of like create the container and then be within it, especially in this kind of situation where I am so familiar with your work and you're kind of like, here I am. If you're,
I know you, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
So if you're open to me like sharing why your work resonates with me so deeply and why I share it so kind of like actively with my customers and patients and clients, if you're open to hearing that, I would love to share.
I'd love to hear. Awesome. Thank you for asking, but yeah.
So I feel like we are, I think, right around the same age, and we both were in New York right around the same time. I had a wellness center in Hoboken for 10 years before I moved. I'm in Colorado now. So like, yeah, so like chronic overachiever.
Yeah, I was in Hoboken a lot because
I bet.
Dating these guys. I dated almost everyone in the band Thursday. Do you remember that band?
I don't know that band.
They're all from there.
I was not in touch with like this is one of the things I want to talk about, but like I was driven and a mom by the time I was 29 and like no time for
oh wow, no time for rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get that part. I'm reliving that now.
Did that make part of your maidenhood? No.
So yeah, so basically did all that, was there for 10 years. I mean, I was there for longer, but had my wellness center. After 10 years, we moved to Colorado. I was like, didn't even know that there was a feminine that I should be looking for or was missing, but felt like something is not happening. So we moved to Colorado and I started kind of uncovering the goddess and books and grasping at everything and started to do some shadow work. And I thought my shadow was going to be, you know, this haggard, old, fat, you know, horrible woman, and started dreaming about this like adorable little like young woman who was probably going to concerts and flirting with band members and very threatening to my marriage, and realized that that was my maiden. So I did like probably 3 years of maiden work, like deep reintegration of the healthy maiden and exploring the wounded maiden. Had dropped fertility, but after kind of all of that working with the goddess, and decided to start working with fertility again and to open up an Instagram account. And one of, I guess, the algorithms of the things that I was looking up, you popped up with your maiden work. And I was like, fuck me. Like, I wish I had this like 3 years ago.
I don't know. Your own journey sounds really powerful.
Yeah, it was. Oh, I'm so glad you brought your drum. I was hoping you would bring your drum.
It's like my snuggie.
Grounds you in. Yeah. So I think you'll know where I'm going with this as soon as I start. But I spoke with Lucy Pierce last week, one of my favorite authors. And I picked up my copy of Burning Woman that you know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
I picked up my copy of Burning Woman, which I had read, I think, in like 2016 or 17, whenever. And flipped through it again and noticed something that it didn't register because it wouldn't have the first time. But like the first quote in the book is your quote.
Yeah. Which one is it?
Can I read it? It says, the Dalai Lama says, the world will be saved by the Western woman. And I agree, she might just be a burning world's last chance. But before she saves the world, she has to save herself. So how do we heal ourselves to heal the world? Yeah. So I was wondering, like, when I think about, I kind of know where you're at now, and I can imagine like the depths that you've kind of plumbed to get to where you are. And this, I think the book came out in 2016. So I imagine that you wrote this way before that. So I'm curious, like, when you think about that girl, and I didn't know about Do It Girl before I read this quote. Yeah. So I'm just so curious, like, when you think back to that version of yourself who wrote that, like what kind of comes up for you, and what do you remember about that?
About that time, I was still very much in Wounded Maiden. It still really hadn't grokked the way you like, oh, okay, I have a Wounded Maiden, or it was right around 2016 when I put together that Marion Woodman was leaving these crumbs, the great Jungian analyst, was leaving these crumbs about, okay, there's the immature feminine and there's the mature feminine. She hadn't left the bridge. And it was right around then when I was like, I'm the immature feminine. Why in a 33 or 34-year-old body am I not grown up yet? Like, what is wrong? And then starting to look around the collective and be like, oh shit, we're all the wounded feminine. We're all the immature feminine. Where are the elders? Where are the great, feminine leaders? Why aren't there women in power? Where, and oh, my mother was that wounded, all the traits I started to jot down about myself and the collective I saw around me, of course, were in my mother as well. So I'd never had an example of the mature feminine. And then I started to just realize truly the mature feminine was the inverse or the opposite of the immature feminine. So where I was weak, I needed to be strong. Where I was hysterical, I needed to be brave. Where I was fragile, I needed to be courageous and resilient. So starting to work with all that around 2016, because recognizing if the Western woman is going to save the world, it's not any woman I know. And it's not me.
Yeah.
Why not? Right.
Yeah. I mean, just that you were even kind of called to awareness of that. Like, I feel like, do you like know what that call was from, like where it came from? And I'm curious too about like what the it was when you were Do It Girl. Was the it like
that's a funny question. The thing, it was always just the thing you're afraid of.
Yeah.
That thing is that you're afraid of. The calling was the gift of exilement over and over and over. I've never belonged, so I never got to really be part of like the herd mentality. I always had to, and it was very painful. It's painful exilement, but I still work with it all the time, as most witches do, and so that was a time of deep exilement when I'd even been kind of forced out of the like wild woman collective I was in, because I held a retreat in Joshua Tree and with a woman who was more of a woman than me. And I had a lot of like, I could sell things out. I was like, I came from the rock and roll journalist world. I came from Vanity Fair and Interview Magazine and Rolling Stone. And, I knew how to sell. Like I knew how to say the sexy thing or the alluring thing or the activating, triggering thing to get attention, which is what wounded maidens need the most, think they need the most from the outside. When of course they need it from in here. But so I could sell things really well and I could say the right things. I just couldn't do the right things. So I had I was still in I was very much a wounded maiden, which means I didn't have like a mature skill set in my feminine friendships, and of course not in my romantic relationships, but I couldn't like have the hard conversations, and I didn't have what I call the metal for that inner strength for the middle of things when things get, beginnings. Maidens are great at beginnings. All the new promises, all the just talking it before you walk it, and then like the initiation of, the reality of things. I didn't have that, grit, or grace. And so I was in the sort of the beginnings of this beautiful friendship with a woman who was more of a woman than me. She was like, hey, can you tell your audience that we're going to do a retreat in Joshua Tree for wild women? And, so it was mostly my audience that came to this retreat I threw with this woman I really admired. And then after that retreat, I remember it was like a glorified sleepover. There was gossip and cliques, and there was just like a lot of whining and moaning and bitching, but nothing getting done. It was like a glorified sleepover. And I remember just like, this is not going well. And that was really when I was looking around at this group of women and being like, we called these women in with that quote, basically, that you just read. And I was like, but these aren't it. These women are self-obsessed, navel gazers, petty, gossiping. I mean, that's like a hard way to remember it. But at the core, it was not, these women were not warriors. They were not queens. And that's because they were a reflection of me. Because so this woman called me and I, after the retreat, and she said, I want you to know, I never want to do a retreat like that again, even though it had made us so much money, everything. Money I immediately spent out of shame because I didn't feel good about how I made it. She said, I think you have a lot to look at, because they were a reflection of you. They were my audience. And that's when I really so she took some space, and then I felt the exilement wound again. And I was living in Topanga Canyon, and I was renting this tower-like apartment, very much Rapunzel, very much the fairy tale. Even had a guy meet me for a date, and he had to wind up the tower, and it was, my whole life was like that. It was all fantasy. And so there was this armoire, I was never really into Narnia or anything, but it was one of those closets that you could get in, you could open and hide in. And so when I really felt okay, once again, I've been exiled. Once again, I've been misunderstood. Once again, I've been all the stuff that started with my mother, and I this sort of the shame of there's something wrong with me. And with my mother, I never figured out what was wrong with me, why she didn't love me. But with this woman, Shakti, she was giving me this beautiful invitation to take a moment to see the reflection of your audience, which is what our audiences are. Obviously, they're just a reflection of us, and sit with that. And so here I was, I thought I found my soul family after walking so long as a black sheep. And then it was no, you haven't. And I would go into this closet. I would read Marion Woodman. I would go into the closet and I would meditate on Magdalene and Jesus as mother and father. And I would sit in that closet and I would wait, and I remember, and I'd wait for answers, and I would see things, but I couldn't, because that's how I that's I guess it's clairescence, when you can see. Yeah. And so I'd see things, but I wouldn't hear what I needed to hear. And then, but we think we're in this consumer instant gratification drive-through window, Amazon Prime culture. But that's not how the goddess works. She works like nature. You plant something, you water it, you're patient, And so I had this question of what is wrong with me? Why are we so immature? Why are we all so wounded and broken? And and I was sitting in the closet, and I remember piecing Marian's words in a book together. In one place she had dropped the clue of the immature feminine. In another place she had dropped the clue in a whole other book of the mature feminine. And I remember popping out of this closet in the middle of the day and was like, okay,
ding.
that's a rite of passage that we don't have anymore.
Wow.
And just doing all the work of like, okay, how do you get there? And then like calling in Inanna and doing a whole death ritual wrote down all the traits of my wounded maiden. And then I wrote down the opposite of those, and that's where the work began. And then Inanna was like, in order to get there, you have to teach what I did in the descent and rebirth of my myth, and which is my truth. And then that's where it began. So really that 2016 was the pain of that quote was, it's not this kind of Western woman. It's a different kind. It's a mature kind. And how do we become mature if that we've lost the rite of passage into our maturity?
Right.
Which is self-actualization, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I refer so many of my patients to your work, is because, you know, I'm actually working on like the physical, like becoming a mother.
Right.
But so many women, even in that rite of passage, like our power is so taken away from us in childbirth, even that doesn't often act as the rite of passage.
No.
And so we have this kind of community of mature, like older women who are not mature women, and who are not, you know, in their mother energy.
Right.
And so when you there's so many things I want to ask you, but you know, when you kind of called the arrival, and you named it so much more beautifully than I will, but like for women who feel like we have arrived, you know, we're kind of at our
motherfucker off. It like clicks all day. I don't know, sorry.
I just had to go in and like, I got a FaceTime call in the middle of like my talk with someone the other day, and I'm like, technology is not my thing. One of the things I appreciate about you so much, and that I don't think we see, or I don't see that often, and what kind of feels like what you were talking about, is like almost this feeling like having put on this, don't worry about it, having put on, like almost feeling like we're putting on this outfit of like goddess or embodied, but so few women even know where to begin to do the work. And what I appreciate about you is like you have this whole community and all these followers, and you seem like you bring yourself back to like or it almost feels like you're insisting upon like, I am human, like almost refusing to allow yourself to be put on this pedestal where I feel like so many women are put on, so that then they can be like torn down, like, nope, you're not that great, you know. And it's something that I struggle with, is I kind of, you know, am an expert in my feet, you know. It's like, I don't want to be like, I want to help you become empowered, not be the expert that then's telling you how to be or what to do. And I appreciate how you know, especially in the arrival, I see you continually doing that. Like, oh, I fucked up, you know, I could do this better. Like, yeah, I feel like we need more people who are like willing to just acknowledge that it's not about like getting some destination. It's about being in the journey. And
yeah, I think the joke of the arrival is like, you never really arrive. And it's like, I don't know why. I still am like, why did you tell me to call it that? Like, that was the name. And there is there's an urgency to bloom for women. You know, if the women don't change, the world won't, you know. But the whole pedestal thing is so interesting to me, because I think as a wounded maiden, I wanted to be on it. Definitely, I'm sure I did.
It looks so appealing, right? It's like,
yeah,
there I get to be perfect. You know?
Yeah, but if you know, and I would put myself on it too. And the problem is when you seem different, like you're different than everyone else, then people start treating you different. And that means like they're holding you to an impossible standard. And you're never going to make that standard. So you're always going to fail, you know? And so I remember I'm obsessed with having been in the celebrity culture for so long on the, you know, on the other side of it, but also almost marrying a celebrity. Like I'm obsessed with people who actively, consciously leave that life for a regular life, you know? And I remember there was this, did you ever get into like the Harry Potters?
A little bit, because my boys are, you know, they were into it. So we've watched all the movies. Yeah, I never read the books though.
Oh wait, maybe it was Game of Thrones. I didn't get into either. But there was a kid that looked like he could have been in either one. He was like this blonde, thin guy that looked really evil, and he was actually very sweet, but he could play evil very well. And he was giving a talk, and I don't know how I found it, but it's because I don't have a lot of free time. I'm a single mom, but I'm writing another book right now, and the next one would be, so I've just finished one book and I'm working on something else, but the next one would be about a treatment center for, well, I've started it, but a treatment center for people leaving the patriarchy and the idea of like what we've been told is success, and like deprogramming from, you know, famous and rich as wealth, and money as happiness. And I put like actors, there's really these amazing people who have done it, and they like have become painters and, you know, or politicians for like, you know, the green, you know, they become people that have, Anne Lamott says, I started out as a big shot. I worked my way up to servant, you know? So and that's really, for me, I'm like, yes, that's what it's about. I started out as a big shot. I was like, I think I wanted to be famous because I was told that would make me happy. I was told that was success in our culture. And so I was watching this kid who was like, that was my last movie role or whatever, I'm never doing it again. And he was talking about how shaky pedestals feel when you're on them. Like one wrong move, and this was one wrong move, like one, you know, someone sees me on a bad day, or they see me back, or I don't walk my talk one day, and you go from, you know, from pedestal to vilified very fast. And so he was I don't know, because it was like 8 years ago that I watched this, if I said this or if he said this, but no, I said this, that I much prefer as a witch to have just the earth beneath my feet, right? And so there was a ton of hubris that we have to go through in our youth. We think we'll live forever. We think we know everything, you know, and you're built that way in your youth to make all these terrible mistakes that become your wisdom. And, you know, and so, but the humility of the mother is to be low to the ground, and like, you know, I'm really in my wolf archetype these days, and just sort of like self-protective, self-guided, you know, it's not about being seen. It's that line from Walter Mitty, beautiful things don't ask for attention. You know, like if you truly know your worth, you truly know your beauty, you truly understand, you know, yourself and your essence, and not even power, just like your innate worth. You don't need a lot of attention, right? But so many of us who grow up with like narcissistic or patriarchalized parents were emotionally abandoned or shamed for being ourselves, or the hot and cold, so that we've become like cannibals for attention. Like we'll mow anyone down to get, well, you know, anybody in our way is like an enemy to get the attention that we need. And then, so once you do the inner mother work and you're giving that maiden the attention, you're giving her the validation, you're giving her the love, you're giving her the presence, that seeking out that I need to be seen, I need everyone to like me, you know, that dissipates, thank goddess. And yeah, that's part of like the depatriarchalization of the mother work, is like, you were told that to be famous, to have a lot of followers, to make a lot of money will make you happy, but it's a toxic myth, like Lynn Twist talks about. That is, our ideas of success are toxic myths.
Yeah.
And only we know what success is or wealth is to us. It's all an inside job.
Yeah. I think about it as like the tit giving like water instead of milk. Like it's feels like maybe it's filling something, but it's just leaving you empty.
For me, as an ex rock and roll girl, it would be like one line of cocaine. Okay, 10,000 followers, not enough. Another line of cocaine. I'm probably good. That's all. No, wait, now I'm 20. Now I need 30,000. You know, like it's never going to stop until it kills you.
Right.
Yeah.
You talk so freely about your witch awakening. Like even me just talking about it, I'm like, oh. So you talk so freely about it, and it's it feels really empowering and really important to like reclaim that word and reclaim what it means for us. Did you have like a back and forth where you were like, this is just for me, I'm not going to share this? Does it ever now feel like, holy shit, like I just, you know what I mean? Like, it's like terrifying.
I tried to die. I tried to kill myself after my fiance left, and I had been miserable my whole life. And like you said, there was something missing for you. I came in remembering Avalon. I came in remembering the goddess. I would draw goddesses everywhere. I wanted to talk about my past life, and everyone was like, gaslit me, shunned me, like shut up, shushed me. And so I went back to sleep, and I was a sleepwalker until I was 31. And then I woke up next to a random man one more time with another hangover and a blackout and not knowing. And I knew this wasn't life. I just knew it wasn't why I was born. The only spirituality that was ever acknowledged was this God that was always mad at and disappointed, that never answered the phone when you called anyway to apologize for what you didn't even know what you're apologizing for. I just like, fuck it. I didn't want to be here anymore. Who would want to be in the fucking patriarchy? It fucking sucks.
It sucks.
So anyway, I got on my knees that morning because I had hoped that I had taken enough pills to just drift away the night before, and I didn't. And I woke up and I was still in this life. And I got on my knees and I said, is there anybody there? Like, is there anyone? And, I said, help me to live or help me to die. I cannot take one more step on this path. I cannot. Help me to live or help me to die. And that's when these radical Kundalini awakening happened, where I met like the energy of Shakti, the energy of the feminine, the great mother, the great goddess, saw her hovering over a field. Like it was, people are like, I want that. And I'm like, no, you don't. Okay. Because there are safer ways to travel, my friends. And it's called On the Ground, but it was this emergency saving my life, like Kali pulling you back out of something that could have killed you, but you're going to get hurt being saved kind of thing, but at least you won't die. But, her caveat that day was, I've saved your life. I've given you a second chance. And the new rules are, there's a caveat. You serve me now. And everything changed. And like, I think it took me a year to I think I studied everything I could possibly get my desperately just starved, and what's the word when you're just like slaking thirst, like just for the feminine, you know, just fuck, where's it fucking been, you know? So like every book I could get, you know, the Jean Shinoda Bolin and every witch book, Doreen Virtue, just, you know, just like couldn't stop. And then I came out of that a year later, and I was at a Barnes and Noble in my hometown of Virginia, which is like smack on my Pluto line, if you know anything about astrocartography, like just the underworld, you know. It makes a lot of sense because all the sexual trauma, all the blah, blah, blah that happened. But that's also if you are an unconscious daughter of the Magdalene lineage, sexual trauma is kind of the name of the game until you wake up. But anyway, and I remember I was writing my Do It Girl letters, because 2 days after the goddess woke me up, I started them, because my whole thing as an arts journalist was like, I have no inner fire, I have no inner purpose. I'll just surround myself around artists, like, you know, a homeless person over a trash can in an alley in the winter, like their flame will warm me because I have no inner flame. And then here comes my goddess awakening. And I was like, I can't say my name. So I did go through like, I can't say my name. It's too scary. This was 11 years ago, you know? And she's like, call yourself Do It Girl. I was like, all right. So then I start, you know, these letters that start, first they're to one woman, then they're to 3 women, then she's forwarding them all over the world. And then like in a month, I have 1,000 followers, you know, and then 2 months, and it's like fucking nuts. But I still haven't named it. And then it was like all the studying and everything. And then I was in a Barnes and Noble back in Virginia, and I came out. It was like, I finally figured it out. I'm a big old witch. And and I remember it was almost like I saw myself, you know, with a noose around my neck somewhere, probably flames at my feet. And she's saying to me, to the modern me, going, don't say it, you know, don't say it. We can't say that. And I said, no, we're safe. We're safe now. I'm going to tell the world. I'm going to say it. I'm going to claim it. And then I did it. And I felt like the noose come off of her neck and the flames die under her feet. And she was like, thank you. You know, she was free. And then the real witch hunts began, because nobody was really saying it back then. And I got people calling me a devil worshiper and hating me and canceling me and all this stuff. But nevertheless, she persisted.
I mean, that brings tears to my eyes. You mentioned this, and I noticed you recently changed your Instagram handle from the Mother Spirit to Sarah Magdalene. And, you know, I was raised kind of Jewish, not really, but I mean, Jewish. So I didn't really know that much about, you know, Mary Magdalene. I recently read Megan Watterson's book that I recommend to everybody. It's so powerful. But so who is Sarah of Magdalene? And like, is that you, or is that what you're channeling? Like, I'm so curious about that.
Oh, I would never say I am Sarah. It's just, I'm getting all kinds of shit now. Hold on. I'm going to start over. Do It Girl is my maiden. Obviously, girl is, you know, it's very hard by like 36 to keep having that name. And then of course, with the mother work, I forget what book it was, but they're talking about the mother spirit returning to the earth. And I don't know, I just clicked. That was my name for 4 years, my pen name or whatever. It's still the name of my business because we run Maiden to Mother, you know? But then, you know, I remember that work, like when I was, again, going through becoming a mother all by myself, no village, no rite of passage. And then the only thing I could find when I Googled it was like blessing ways, you know, but not like, how do I come into the maturity to mother this child when I've never had a mother? You know, nothing like, it's one thing to have had a mother. It's another thing to have actually been mothered, which I wasn't, you know, when you said that it's the difference between she's older or she's an elder, right? So that means she just got old, or she matured, she ripened, she wizened, you know. And so, yeah, I started channeling Sarah of Magdalene. So Jesus, okay, in my lens, which is not everyone's lens, Jesus and Magdalene were madly in love and tantric lovers. And she was the moon to his sun. He was the sun to her moon. And the wholeness that they taught of the integration of, you know, the masculine and the feminine, the hieros gamos, the inner marriage first, coming into relationship and wholeness, and merging as one, and the balance of the masculine and the feminine within and on the planet are, you know, what needs to happen now, obviously, and the healing of the masculine and the healing of the feminine and the reunion. And so the lore is that if you haven't read the Magdalene manuscript, this will help you understand, but they had a daughter named Sarah. And I have past lives with memories of being her. Wow. Now, I'm not saying, because there are other women that have them too. Mm-hmm. And so it's like the number 144, they say that there's 144,000 women alive right now carrying the archetype of Magdalene. Mm-hmm. And so there's, for me, got it. There's just as many women carrying the archetype of Sarah. And Sarah is the radical daughter of love. She is here with radical fire for the feminine. She is here in this time of urgency, as a leader, as a warrior, as a tantrika, as a teacher, to raise the feminine, to bring it back into balance with the masculine. Mm. Yeah.
And you like hear her voice, or you channel? And
I believe that, yeah, I can channel her. I mean, that's certainly true. Mm. So I'm never going to come out and be like, I am the daughter of Jesus and Magdalene.
I mean, you could.
But I carry her energy. I can channel her energy, and when I'm embodied, when I'm in my practice, I can bring her energy into the room. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I know where I'm looking at our time. So this is what I really wanted. I mean, there's so many things I wanted to talk to you about, but the thing that kind of was like, I need to talk to you, was that you were posting about your summer experience. And one of the things I think about, like, being in our feminine feels to me like not about like actively fighting the patriarchy, like with the tools of the patriarchy. It's just like doing the fucking things we have to do that we would be doing if we weren't controlled by capitalism and the patriarchy. And it's so hard to do. It's so hard to do. And it feels like you did it, you know. I'm sure it came with its challenges and, you know, everything. But this summer, you created a village for yourself, which I feel like is what is like so many of us are longing for, that we don't even realize we're longing for.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like how we started talking. I mean, this is how feminine conversations go. They spiral and come back to the beginning. And it was like you knew something was missing, feminine, and then you find it and you're like, I knew it in my bones. I knew it. Yeah. And the village life is the same way. Like that we're not supposed to be raising our children alone, and we're not supposed to be doing it all. We're supposed to be doing that one thing we came to do, and raising each other's children and as part of packs and village. And it's not easy when you come out of a patriarchal mindset and patriarchal programming to remember village consciousness, but it's in the mycelium of the forest floor, and it's in our cells as well. So we remember, but we just have to remember, like, okay, her children are my children are her children, and we share everything. you know, and sometimes it's like today I'm watching the kids starting at 3, and, you know, there's this moment of like, but what if I want to, and it's like, no, what if I wanted to just smoke a joint and watch Netflix all by myself? And it's like, well, this is part of it, is like, you know, this is communal living, and she needs help. And when you need help, she'll be there. And as it goes, you know, but there's times when you just want to go back in your sweatpants and your lazy boy and have this like comfortable, easy, isolated life. But that's not what we're here for. And so, yeah, I mean, in the future, and then I went to go see a friend in Maine, and she's so used to doing it all by herself. And I was standing in her kitchen. I was like, and she was just like not letting me do anything. And I go, Elise, if you don't let me fucking help around here, I'm gonna kill you. And she was like, I don't know how to. Yeah. And I'm like, can I put these dishes away? Can I go brush the boys' teeth? Like, we can do this. And then by day 3, I was brushing their teeth but it takes like, you know, cause she just didn't know. And I was like, we need weekends of remembering where we come back together in village retreats and just like everyone starts practicing, because we can, again, once we're in it, we remember and we know it's what we need. But I was watching a woman who'd never villagized before. And she really thought she had to do everything by herself, right? And just serve me. And I was like, the way you can serve me is by asking me for help. So I can give.
After reading one of your little posts, I was like, I didn't have a village, you know? And then I thought about my life in Hoboken, where, you know, my kids were born and we lived there until my older one was 7. And I kind of did, you know, we were all around, but we were all so self-sufficient and independent, you know, all doing our perfect mothering, you know, and I feel like that was as close to it as I could have allowed myself to get at the time. Like, I wasn't available to not do everything myself.
A lot of pride. I can do it all by myself. It takes humility. I can't do it all. I don't want to do it all. Yeah.
But I think about how that experience will like live in your children's like cells of like that communal life and sharing and openness. And it just feels really, really powerful. And
I mean, I'm going back to the island for part of the year, but the work it's while I get everything together to continue the village in Maine.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because once you go village, you don't want to go back. Everybody gets to be in their natural skill set, and then they're really in their power. When we're not trying to do it all, we're just raggedy ass burnout city, like barely. But when it's like, I'll do what I came here to do. You can't do what you came here to do. And like, you know, there's just, everyone gets to be in their magnificence that way, you know? So yeah, and then you're always in relationship, and relationship keeps you real, right?
Relationship to the earth and relationship to each other as real humans, vulnerable, open, and
there's no real like living with somebody, as you know. It's like, oh girl, you got some shit. Well, you have some shit too. Yes, I know. Why don't you work on yours and I'll work on mine? And everyone still loves each other. Okay. You know, so especially like the other mama here is a big old witch too. So yeah. And so is Elise in Maine. And you know, they raise their children very similarly. Witches raise their children very similarly. Outside, nature-based, you know, peaceful, wild, all that. So
yeah. Well, so I have one more question, which I was curious about. So before I was doing these, I was like, would it be inappropriate if I asked people to like see their astrological chart before they came on and like refer to it? But so you talked about your Pluto line. Do you have like a lot of the underworld kind of like Pluto and Scorpio, and like, do you know, is that active?
Yeah, I'm Venus in Scorpio.
You're what?
So I'm Venus in Scorpio, so I relate to everyone as a Scorpio. And all my relationships, I relate as a Scorpio. Heidi Rose Robbins, do you know her?
No.
She's a lovely shamanic astrologer.
Yeah, I'm gonna check her out.
Yeah, I think you really like her. She's a wonderful human. But she says basically, because I'm Taurus rising, and so I'm in, that's why the search for home is now on, the roots, the need for roots are on. And my daughter's a Taurus, and so she wants to be in one place, and she loves routine, you know. But Heidi says I'm basically waffling between my Taurus and Scorpio, and all my Taurus and Scorpio are always trying to balance each other out all the time.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, just last night, I was working with these people who were like, your job is just to imagine, like, what would be your fantasy with no limits? Like, we'll put the limits on, you just do. And I basically was like, you know, a land and water, and it's completely self-sufficient, and everyone, there's an artist colony and teachings and in school, and, you know, relearning how to be, and I was like, basically that was like a commune that I just imagined in my head.
Yeah.
But I do believe that's like, it's the only way I can see us really.
Joanna Macy says it's our only hope is to village.
Yeah.
It's our only hope for humanity.
So let's call them in. I feel like the people are wanting that and seeking that and searching for that and pray.
Everyone wants it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. Yeah. It's the only way to survive.
Yeah, I believe that. All right. Well, it's so magical to talk to you. I am so grateful to you for coming on. I feel like, you know, in terms of your Maiden to Mother work, for all of many of my listeners are in their kind of fertility journey, and you are like you have your trainings and your courses, and then you're also now training other teachers to do this work. And I feel like, you know, I do believe that it is perhaps maybe the Western mature woman who saves the world. Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like I know my listeners are going to really resonate with everything you're saying, and I just appreciate how you come on as you, like the magical human witch who refuses to be on the pedestal, because that's a shaky, dangerous place. So being on the earth and getting your feet dirty and just being in your body and in your magic feels like what the world needs. So I'm so glad that our paths have crossed, and I, you know, finally got onto Instagram, which I had resisted for so long, and was like, oh, there is magic here. So in the form of Sarah.
Sometimes like the monkey mind, it's like, as long as you're using it and it's not using you, it's fine. You know, it's just when it's stealing hours of your life and you're going into care and despair and crap like that, and forgetting what you already have. You know, this morning in Mother Church, it was all about Lynn Twist and her enoughness teachings, and her, you know, it was just, she had a great newsletter today about, you know, this cannibalistic consumerist mind that's taken over our culture like a plague.
Virus, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. It was a really nice way to like Mother Church and then come into this. So
yeah, you know, I just feel so Mother Church, I am gonna do. I didn't know that I could download it and watch it later. So will you just tell the listeners who I think would really appreciate it what it is, so they can find you?
It got us to, made me call it church because, you know, the patriarchal Christian church took so many of her rituals and rites and turned them into Christian rites and rituals. Were really, she started the communing in the temple to spirit, and the, you know, the drinking of the wine and the being together and the singing and the prayers together and the oneness. And so the coming back into taking all those rituals back, taking back the power of the goddess. And really it is temple. Like I channeled the temple of Isis in Mother Church, and we come together and to get into our throne in the morning, listen to the whispers of the crone and take care of the crying maiden in the lap, and then first tend to our own cries and needs, so that when we enter the world every morning, we're coming in as mother, as the gift, as the woman here to give, and the woman deeply resourced into the inner well where all is deeply well, and coming from that place of safety and that frequency of the great mother, which is such a gift to us first. and to go out into the world in these times as the mother.
I feel that in my body. All right, I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I
You're
will
welcome.
see you at the next Arrive, but I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it was super fun. Blessed be. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Mwah.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more like it, be sure to subscribe, and I hope you'll rate and review as well. To learn more about how to connect with and explore your fertility, visit wisdomofthewomb.online.com and learn more about my fertility enhancing 12-week program at fertilelikeamother.com. Thanks so much for joining.